Welcome to Change the Narrative. I'm your host, JD Fuller, an African-American licensed psychotherapist, professor, diversity coach, consultant, and author. We talk about the isms. We talk about the phobias, anything that marginalizes and oppresses. Everything we are not and everything we are is because of fear. Through a mental health lens, we'll have difficult conversations with celebrity guests, political activists, and everyone in between. Our mind will tell us whatever we want to believe, but the truth lives in the body, and that's where change occurs. Are you ready to change the narrative? All right. Fletcher, welcome. Thank you so much for coming to share this space with me and talk about your journey. I'm really excited to get to know you. I purposely didn't read a lot about you because I wanted it to just be fresh in our conversation. So welcome.
All right. Thank you for having me. Glad to be here.
Absolutely. So I like to go back in a story like yours. I like to go back to come forward. So, you've been triumphant. And before we get there, I want to talk a bit about your family dynamics. How many kids were in your family? What was your relationship like with your mom and dad? Can you talk about that a little bit?
For sure. So growing up, I grew up in the South and I had that dynamic, matriarch, Maria and Big Mama and all that and everything. So even though I am my only child, my father is the youngest of 9. So I have super amount of cousins, like cousins galore. And, on both sides, I have huge family on both sides. My parents are still together. They've been married 35 years. And I think that played a role in my support system and my way of thinking, just being raised by both my parents, my father being, the type of man that he is and the mother, the type of woman that she is, raising me in that Southern, you got to be in the house for the street lights come on and, all the things in the South we learned just growing up. And I think that's gives me 100% of the way I am. And I wouldn't be where I am without my support system and just those people in my life. My grandmother raising me during the summer because my parents couldn't afford summer camp and just things like that.
That's amazing. And I have so much envy for people who were brought up in that way. The whole Big Mama era.
Mm-hmm.
That's pretty dope and special.
Oh, yeah. But yeah, don't sit in Big Mama chair. You know better than that.
I love that. So if you had to come up with a theme to represent your life prior to your life-changing experience and going off to college, prior to that, what would the theme be?
The theme, I would say, I've heard this more than once. Fletcher, what is wrong with you, son? That would be my thing. That would be my thing because even just growing up, I hated to be told I couldn't do something and I was just a very competitive individual. So once I realized I was physically gifted, I use it to my advantage. Like, I bet you $50 I can jump over that car. Fletcher, you cannot jump over the car. Bet on it.
Really?
And then I was jumping, but then just doing that in in the parking lot of high schools and stuff. Principals are like, Fletcher, can you not jump over cars? Because if you fall, now we got to call the hospital, explain your mama why you jumping over car, all that stuff. So it's like my parents are like, Fletcher, what is wrong with you? Why are you in school jumping over cars?
And so that is very funny. So then as a child, you realized you were a gifted athlete, or was it more in high school that you started to see that?
I really paid attention to it as a child growing up. I was just outside playing and running. But then when I got to more competitive team sports, that's why I kind of realized it was kind of a gift and just challenged myself to continuously be better. I always wanted to play with the older individuals because, like I said, growing up, I never noticed it because with me being the only child and my dad, the youngest of 9, all of my cousins are older than me. So to me, I thought I wasn't fast. I thought I was, inadequate because everybody else has always beat me. But they were 5 years older than me, not really thinking about age. And that it doesn't matter. You want to play with us, you're going to win or you're going to lose. But then once I started playing with people my age, I'm like, y'all are terrible. I'm better than all y'all.
Your dad and I have something in common. I'm the youngest of 9 as well. And what did you notice? Because I'm sure people can tell things about me being the youngest. What do you notice about your dad and his positioning in the family?
That's my man's pots and pans.
Yeah.
I love that's my man's right there. Jesse always wanting better for his family because my mother is the only child as well,
Mm.
so she kind of grew up like lower middle class, but my father grew up like lower middle class. So he just realized like just the stories he told me was saying like I realized when my mama was pregnant with me, and my father was like, "Look, I'm tired of being hot in the summer, cold in the winter. I'm tired of having to hide my tissue from my siblings because they stealing it all the time. I'm tired of living like I'm tired of bugs and roaches. I'm tired of this." And and he just said I didn't want my son to grow up in that environment. So I was blessed enough he was blessed enough to have a mindset to continuously work and moved us out of the before I could even understand poverty. I moved to the suburbs in the second grade.
Mm.
So yeah, moving out there was just a tremendous eye opening. More not expectations, more opportunities, which is a sad thing to say is what it is. The suburbs just offered more opportunities in the late '90s and the early 2000s than inner city schools did, and it made a tremendous outcome in my life and my future. Also, my mindset, having that growing up on Sundays and the weekends in the hood, so to speak. But then seeing, the suburban lifestyle Monday through Friday with going to, all white school or majority white schools and things, it kind of gave me the opportunity to see both sides and what were the differences at a young age.
You said a few things that I want to grab onto, but
Mhm.
you know, you did have the experience of being in both environments. What did you learn from one environment that benefited you in the other?
Um, I guess learning in the inner city environment that I guess being competitive, that was
Mhm.
my thing. It just always, like I said, growing up with so many cousins, just being extremely competitive. That was one of the big things because, like I said, I was a lot younger, so I really didn't have any responsibilities. But also, realizing the education system wasn't the same.
Mm.
You know, switching and then struggling in the beginning from going to making A's and B's to the inner city, then going to the suburban schools. It was C's in the beginning. I'm like, it just the school systems were different.
Mm.
And I don't think that was fair. But also learning how to, I guess, code change.
Mm.
Just kind of
Switch it up.
proper English.
Switch it up.
Yeah,
What they call
switch
proper
it up.
English, but we call regular English.
Exactly, regular English. It was like you speak so clear. I'm like, speak normal English to me.
Yeah, right.
But then you going back and you realize, hey, y'all kind of do chew y'all words up, so but you gotta switch it up. You gotta go switch it up when you're with your people.
Yeah, and I think what we've learned now that we didn't have access to even, as young as you are, is that we have pride in our AAV. We don't have
Hmm.
to feel ashamed of what we do with our language. Back then, even as young as you are, back then you were taught that, to be ashamed of the language you grew up with and to switch
Hmm.
it up in order to, thrive, but at the same time I hope you eventually learn that what we do is fine by us.
Hmm.
Does that make
Absolutely. Yeah, you just all being comfortable within your skin,
hmm
and also living in the inner city. There's I kind of took with me is like being. It's kind of not a good thing to say, but like being aware of your surroundings and always having to keep like, hey, who is that walking towards us? Like y'all know him, But in the when you get to suburban, like they was just walking up to strangers and getting kidnapped. I was like, my mom ain't going for that. Like, so do you know this man? I know that person. I'm not going with you. I'm gonna we both gonna get in trouble.
There's nothing funny about that, and yet everything's funny about that. They were just walking up to people
Yeah,
getting kidnapped.
exactly. I mean, yeah, it's not funny. You know what I'm saying? But it's
Yeah.
like, why would you walk with this stranger? Talking like other people talking to them.
Uh-huh.
I was like, I didn't go. My mama told me. I had called my mama. I asked her.
That's so
Like, we just
fascinating.
they would say, "Hey, we're going to the movies." Okay, let me call my mama. Bro, you just can't go with us. Not without permission. Yeah. I just can't go to the movies with y'all without them knowing. Y'all crazy. Y'all gonna get me killed.
It's so interesting that dynamic of which you speak, the idea that it was ingrained in you what you needed to do
Mhm.
to be in that black body in that life. Like even though you were in the suburban lifestyle, don't trip, Fletcher. Remember where you came from, and you managed to hang on to
Exactly.
that, huh?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Just because they can go, you can't go. Why I can't go? Because I said
Right.
so. Yes, ma'am.
I tell you, boy, there's something about the old school rule book. I know there's a progressive way of doing things differently, but when I hear stories like that, it's like there's a place for it. That brought you to where you are.
I remember vividly, um, like when I started driving about 16, 15 years old, they said I couldn't go somewhere, some party. And some of my friends that were on the football team, they was like, bro, just take the car. Are you out your mind? You want me to just take my daddy car? Is you crazy?
You learned the
I was like,
lessons
nah,
well,
exactly. I don't know how y'all grew up, but that ain't gonna fly in my household.
or you'll fly out of your household.
Exactly. I won't be here tomorrow. I'll be off the team.
Off the team. That's great. So, Fletcher, I want to get back to the question that it sounds like every adult in your life asked you when you were younger. What was wrong with you? How come you felt the need to break the rules and do what you did?
I think so. It was a consensus of like, I never got in like any quote unquote big trouble, but I was like, breaking wind, throwing rocks, and son, why was you throwing rocks? Mhm. I don't know, just being a boy. I don't know, son. Why you putting firecrackers in the mailbox? I don't know. Well, since you don't know, you ain't going nowhere until you know.
And when you think back on that, do you have any? I mean, I have an idea of why you were the way you were, but I'm curious if it's the same as what I think. Your idea.
What do you
Well,
mean?
okay. For example, I would say that you. Let me say it clear. You were the way you were, so you can be where you are now.
Absolutely,
Right.
absolutely. Team sports and the way I was rendered definitely gave me the mindset of facing all the obstacles I face today.
Mm-hmm.
Just to never giving up. And my father tell him, when you start something, don't quit. Don't think you're inadequate just because you look different. You can make the same grades they make. You can do the same stuff they do. You can, all the things like you ain't got to think you're inferior or something like that. So taking that mentality and transitioning into sports, which then it transitioned into my disability,
Mm-hmm.
got me to where I am today.
So okay, so I want to go to let's get into it and set it up. Freshman
Mm-hmm.
year, you're feeling sounds like pretty confident. You arrive on campus and you go into your classes. Talk about that entry point.
Well, I had been on campus already 4 months prior
Okay.
because I graduated in May and I left to go to school 2 days after high school graduation. Because I knew with me being on a football scholarship, I had to get my body prepared for the upcoming season because the season starts right when college starts for the most part, maybe like a week or two later. So the football team has been on campus months before students get there.
Hmm.
But we didn't have to report until 4th of July. That was mandatory report. But I chose to go 2 months early, but May, June, yeah, 2 months early, just to kind of being so competitive. It's like, all right, everybody else probably kicking and partying. They ain't gonna start until 4th of July. I'm gonna already be 2 months ahead of everybody by the time they get here. So I had been on campus, months prior and kind of knew my way around. But when school started, you're finally getting that. I'm finally a college student. All the things they have been telling us since freshman year of high school. Get prepared for college. Nobody's gonna let her hold your hand. Make sure you got your schedule. You're gonna have to wake up. Make sure you got your dorm intact. All the stuff I had been prepared for and looking forward to for the next 4 years of my life were finally here. I'm going to my classes. I'm feeling good. I'm looking good. I got my new clothes on. Got my cologne on. The girls on campus. I'm hanging out in the UC. I'm feeling good. So it was an eye-opening experience to finally be where I saw myself being for the past 4 years of high school.
I'm sure that was a surreal experience. It sounds like where you were
Mm-hmm.
finally there and it was coming to fruition. And then, will you talk about the day that your life changed? Like what led up to it and
Yeah.
what happened?
Yeah, we were at practice that morning, same routine, study hall, wake up 5 a.m. workouts. You got weights at 7, class from 8:30 to noon. Then you got downtime film. So same routine I had been doing for the past 2 weeks, actually being in class.
Mhm.
It was the first NFL game of the season, September 10th, 2009. It was the Pittsburgh Steelers versus Tennessee Titans. My roommate, Dane, it was a Pittsburgh fan. And with me being from Memphis, I was like, I'm rooting for the home team, Tennessee. And so I was like, hey, man, let's go to Buffalo Wild Wings. Let's watch the game when we get out of study hall. He was like, man, Fletch, he's an introvert and I'm an extrovert.
Mhm.
So I'm trying to be like in the thick of it with everybody hanging out. And he was kind of shyer than I was and just, I really don't feel like going. I'm like, man, look, I had just got a car for high school graduation. I was like, look, I got the car. Come on, man, we going. He was like, all right, Fletch, I'll go. So we go to Buffalo Wild Wings. It's super packed. we just like, hey, let's just get the wings to go and just watch them in the UC with the rest of the team. And it was like, all right, cool. So we get in the car, get the wings to go, put my seatbelt on, same routine I've done 100 times. And on the way to the dorm, a lady was texting and driving, not paying attention. And she crosses over the double yellow line and she's headed straight towards us. And I saw her coming, panicked, I overcorrected, trying to swerve to miss her, spun out of control, hit a guardrail. And then once we hit the guardrail, we flipped several times. And in the process of flipping, the roof caved in and broke my neck in two places.
Oh,
And I was paralyzed and knocked unconscious immediately.
I am so sorry about that experience. That is horrific. And so what happened to your passenger?
Yeah, so he was partially ejected from the vehicle. So when the car was tumbling, he was ejected through the window or some, I don't know what or exit point, and the car landed. When it was rolling, it landed on top of his arm, and he was just trying to pull his arm to get out. But in the process of trying to pull his arm, he ended up basically ripping his arm off.
Oh my
So,
God.
yeah, so they had to like do multiple surgeries to reattach it and do all the things that he's doing his own journey.
Yeah.
But he's doing well now. 13 years later, he's doing pretty well. And
So
we metaphorically.
two things. One, did you two stay connected? I want to get into your recovery, but I want to know, when you started to on your journey of recovery, did you two stay connected?
Yeah, absolutely. That's my man's pots and pans. I was actually he just got married June early this past June. I was the best man at his wedding.
Oh, that's amazing. Wow. That is
Yeah, we
amazing.
got we both are 32 years old, and of course, from 18, you go from talking every day to every other day,
Mhm.
and then you kind of get in your routine when you get 21, 25, 28. You get his girl, his wife, and because he lives in DC and I live here, so we go. Of course, we kind of not grew apart, but was going our own directions in life.
Yeah.
But we still keep in contact, come see each other, and kick it. We had a ball catching up, and it was a fantastic time.
That is so amazing. I love that. Talk a bit about your
Mhm.
recovery and the support you received, and also, did you have any mental health engagement after this traumatic experience?
My recovery first physically was harder than mentally because mentally, like through my rendering, I had always been taught to never give up. So I already knew what the battle was going to be. It's going to be a hard battle. Never give up. Gonna just keep fighting. Always trying to prove people wrong. Just keep doing what you've been through. And Fletcher just take it from inner city school stuff or in suburban stuff, from that football stuff, and now use it towards this. And that's what I did. But it was just I wouldn't say it was a mental struggle, but there were dark days where because you go from being a collegiate athlete to being a quadriplegic, where most of your body is don't work,
Mhm.
and you're just so used to being physically gifted. I've always said like growing up, you hanging out at the movies. If something happened, I'll just run. I can outrun everybody.
Mm.
But then not being able to do that and not being able to defend myself or whatever the case may be, and it was kind of a mental day, dark days, so to speak, in the beginning. But it took me maybe 5 days to get over it, and it was like, hey, man, look, this is the problem. What's the solution? Now let's fix it. All right, this is what we're faced with. This is the obstacle. Now it's time to put your big boy drawers on and get to it.
Wow, that's incredible. I have to tell you. Um,
Now, thank you.
you said right after that, your parents lost their job. My God, how did
Mhm.
you manage? What did that look like?
I didn't know it until years later because, with being in the hospital in therapy, they kind of kept the financial struggles away from me. I'm like, why y'all ain't at work no more? Don't worry about that, son. You just go to therapy. Don't worry about all that. They would, hey, we took off for your accident or everything was going on now. Our job understands, but lo and behold, they actually got let go. My dad actually knew he was losing his job. His job was moving to Vegas, so his last day was like November. But when my car crash happened in September, they just paid him out for the rest of the 2 months and was like, "Hey, go be, with your son."
Okay.
So he was prepared. But my mother, just through the process, she lost her job, and I kind of was like, "Mom, you should have been around a lot more lately," But she was like, "No, son, you worry about the wrong thing. You need to be worried about therapy." I was like, "Okay," and I didn't pay no attention to it.
So to this day, have they ever told you how they?
Oh,
Yeah, they told you how they managed to get you through and them through all of that.
yeah, and it's just by the grace of Big G. I call God Big
Oh
G,
yeah.
so just by the grace of Big G, They said they told me it was like, hey, we were because the mortgage was still due, so there was like we were thinking about selling the house and renovating my mother's mother, so my grandmother's house, and was moving in with her, or what they did went through different plans, but my dad ended up finding a job, my mother ended up finding a job that allowed her to work from Atlanta, Georgia, which is where I was stationed at in therapy. And just that whole process, of them going through 401ks and having rainy funds and stuff that they went through that I'm very appreciative of now that I'm a lot older and I know what type of sacrifice that takes to do that type of commitment. But one thing they always said, it was like, son, like you are a son. What do you think we was gonna do? Like, that's what you're supposed. That's what parents are supposed to do for their children. Like you're supposed to sacrifice for your children. You're supposed to, and it's like, that's what they say. But you see a lot of parents who aren't sacrificing. Who aren't being. I'm not as blessed, or not as blessed as I am to have the type of parents that I do.
Yeah, that's well said. Your parents were old school, what the ancestors taught them. You do what you
Mm-hmm.
got to do because you have to do it. There wasn't a lot of time to think about feeling a certain kind of way. They had to be there for their son, and that's again just flabbergasted. I really am just amazed at your story and how your family stayed together. You know how many families are broken up by a tragedy?
Oh yeah, I mean, within therapy, just seeing other teenagers going through that, and their parents didn't make it through it. Reaching out, I was like, "Hey man, how you been doing?" After we left therapy, oh yeah, I live with my dad now. My parents ended up getting a divorce. I'm like, "Damn, sorry to hear that."
Yeah.
But it's a if you don't, I've never been married, so I don't know. But
Mhm.
I just couldn't imagine just dealing with that and then marriage problems, or if you're already having marriage problems and that happens, and or you're not financially prepared for something like that. A lot of parents are. I used to be surprised of how many people I've met that are going through what they're going through on other stuff as well. A young man I met left school to get some McDonald's and ended up having a car crash. During the process, became paralyzed. A single mother just couldn't afford home renovations, so they had to put him in a nursing home at age 19 years old. And I'm like, I couldn't imagine being in a nursing home at 19. It's like, dude, I couldn't imagine that.
So when you consider gratitude as one of the grounding forces in your life, it makes sense
Mhm.
that that's how you were able to thrive. You had
Mhm.
perspective is what I want to say. You had perspective.
Perspective. And seeing watching them sacrifices also gave me motivation to never give up. So when you watch somebody sacrifice that much for you and just to see you be successful, I can't quit just because they've sacrificed. Like if I quit on myself, that means I'd be quitting on them and all their sacrifice would be for nothing. So I'm like, no, for instance, I gotta graduate college. My mama waking up at 5 in the morning and getting me dressed. My dad then taking me to college, dropping me off. My mama coming to pick me up on her lunch break, then taking me to my dad's job, and then on his lunch break, he taking me from his job home. Like and my dad picking me up and putting me in the vehicle. My mom breaking my chair down in the rain, and all this
Mm.
stuff is. It was like, and that's why I did it because watching them get older and watching them, bend over, pick me up,
Mhm.
I kind of watched them like have more back problems and knee problems.
Mm.
And I was like, Fletcher, if you want your parents to have a longevity, you gotta start driving. You gotta graduate. You gotta get a job. You gotta move out. You gotta, cause look what you're doing to your parents, man.
Wow,
And I just had that talk to myself, and it kept me going.
that is. I'm running out of words for just this story. I
Mhm.
mean, it is a book, you know. So
Yeah.
so it's no wonder because it is a book. Um,
Mhm.
in the end, you became the wheelchair nomad. Talk about this transformation process.
Being an only child and then never wanted the feeling of being left out. Like with my cousins, like we go to the store, I want to go too. So that type of mentality growing up. When I was in therapy, I wasn't. I missed my entire freshman year, my first freshman year, because I was in therapy. So I'm on Facebook watching them go to spring break in Panama, watching them go to football games and yard shows and pledging and having all this fun and homecoming. And I'm like, I want to do that too. So I went back to school. I got into the college life. They were going to spring breaks, and I couldn't fly and go that long of a distance because I had just newly injured. But my friends, being a great support system that they are. We went to Nashville one spring break just to kind of make a getaway, and it was a fantastic opportunity. It was the first time I've ever been away from my parents for a day, multiple days at one time, and just being around them and kicking it and hanging out. It was so much fun. So they just sacrificed and was like, all right, what do we need to do to make so Fletch can get on the plane? So we kind of went through the medical process. So they did that. So long story short, we took a 15 passenger van to, it was 12 of us, to Mardi Gras, and that was a fantastic experience. We did that again. We went to Dallas. That was fun. So then we started getting on planes. We go to LA, we go to Vegas, we go to Miami, we go to all these places. And I'm posting pictures and just doing what everybody else is doing. Hey, out in Vegas with my people, out in Atlanta with my friends, and get kind of start getting notoriety of being an inspiration. Like, hey, when this guy just hurt 6 years ago, now he all in Vegas and LA and doing this and this and that. And I think I posted in one travel group, and somebody was like, Fletch, you everywhere. You like a nomad. And just me being the person I am, I'm like, yeah, I'm the wheelchair nomad. So I started hashtagging my posts as the wheelchair nomad, and posted in travel groups. Then I started traveling out of the country and doing the same thing, posting videos and travel things. And then this, I know it kind of caught on, because once I started going out of the country, it kind of got a broad horizon, or broadened view and an audience. So I'm starting getting like 10,000 likes, 5,000 shares. And I go to Taste of Chicago. At this time, I've probably been to 4 countries. I go to the Taste of Chicago, and my cousins were going to a nightclub. They get me out the truck, put me in my wheelchair, and I'm getting my cologne on, getting ready to go in. And a lady comes up, and she was like, "Excuse me, are you the wheelchair nomad?" And I'm like, "How did you know that?" She was like, I've been following you for 4 years, like so many years. And I've seen your posts when you went to Dubai and Italy and Paris, and you're such inspiration. I'm like, okay, yeah, this is a thing now. I got to keep it going.
Oh, that's a great story. So when somebody says, you have a disability, you're disabled, what does that mean to
Mhm.
you? Because I've been really listening to people who are physically challenged or differently able
Mhm.
say what helps them and what hurts them. What how do you respond to that?
So I'm not very, that stuff that doesn't bother me, like the verbiage. Only word I do not appreciate is crippled.
Mm.
Like, I think that's just, I don't know. It just grinds my gears.
Does anybody
And I've been in
people still use that?
exact. I'm like, you still use that 1985 word, like I'm saying, I've been in situations like they mean no harm. Like, sir, do you need to get through? I'm like, yeah. I was like, thank you. Be like, excuse me, cripple coming through. I'm like, damn,
What?
you just gonna say it out loud, huh?
Saying the quiet part out loud, that is horrible.
Exactly. So, but other than that, like disabled or mobility challenged, and all that doesn't bother me. So, because I have thick skin, like you said, growing up in the South,
Mhm.
you gotta have thick skin, so that doesn't bother me at all. But some people it bothers. I think you just should be respectful and see what they would like to be identified as, and use whatever term they would like you to use.
That makes sense. So then you started the Sky is Not the Limit organization. Will you talk about that?
Mhm. Yeah, so yeah, absolutely. So when I was in the hospital, I was in the hospital 10 days. So I remember being in ICU. And when the doctor came in, he told me, told my family and I, yes, Fletcher is paralyzed. He won't be able to do X. He won't be able to do Y. He won't be able to do Z. He starts going down a list of things I won't be able to do. And my mind immediately reverted back to when I was told I was too small to play high school football. I was too small to get a full scholarship. I was too small to play as a true freshman. All these no's that people had been telling me my entire life that I've overcome, this was just another no. I had to prove him wrong. So I remember laying and thinking about, being upset, like, who is he to tell me what I can and can't do? He don't know me. He don't know the struggles I've been through. He's trying to put limits on my life, and just playing like words, trying to put limits on my life, limitations. And this phrase, just the sky's the limit, popped in my head. The sky's the limit. And I started thinking, it's like, the sky's not the limit because there's footprints on the moon.
Mm.
So I think at the bottom of my book, we came up with the phrase like, don't tell me the sky's the limit when there's footprints on the moon, which basically means that there are no limitations to what you can achieve. There are no limitations to what you can accomplish. The only limitations are the ones you impose on yourself.
Mm.
So you are the author of your own story. So I refuse to let anyone put limitations on my life. Like, I'm the only one that knows what I can and can't do, because our football coach used to tell us the same all the time. The person who says they can and the person who says they can't are both right. Which one will you be? So I chose to be the person who says they can, and started the sky is not the limit.
Skies. Oh, did I
organization.
say sky is the limit? I'm sorry. Did I say it wrong?
You said it correctly. I
Okay.
was just
Emphasizing.
emphasizing on the not.
I got it. No, I feel you. If there was one message you wanted parents and adolescents to hear, what would that be?
I would say understand that adversity happens to everybody. Adversity happens to me, you, your mama, your sister, your daddy, your cousin too.
Mhm.
But because my grandma said, if you ain't been through nothing in life, that means you ain't lived long enough. So understand, you adversity is gonna happen. It's part of life. It's part of ups and downs. But it's not what happens to you that defines you. It's how you respond to it. How you gonna respond when you're 18 years young and become paralyzed? How you gonna respond when you don't get into that college? You get let go from your job. You're going through that divorce or whatever the case may be. And I chose to respond in a positive manner. The glass is always half full versus half empty. It can always be worse. And I think that you should approach life or approach every situation in the exact same way. That's all I say. It's not about what happens to you that defines you. It's how you respond to it. Don't let your current circumstances dictate your future. Though you may be without employment at this moment, though you may be going through a divorce, or you may be in the inner city, you may be whatever the case may be. Don't let your current circumstances dictate your future. You can always make a better tomorrow.
Wow. You're too much, Fletcher. You really are. I am just you've left me speechless a few times in this conversation. Before we end, will you do me a favor and tell everybody where they can get your book, your hire you for public speaking, your website,
Mhm.
social media, all
Yeah,
of that.
yeah. Yeah, you can hit me up on FletcherCleaves.com. So that you can find all my social media handles there, my book, merchandise, more in depth about my story, my AT&T commercials on there. I did a TED talk that is also on there about the dangers of distracted driving, and the wheelchair nomad. There's blog posts about my experience of being disabled black person in Europe, which is eye opening within itself because first of all, it's like being American, then being a black American, then
Mm,
being a disabled black American.
mm.
It was just there's just eye opening experience. I talk about that in there. It's just a whole lot of stuff. So I would say go to FletcherCleaves.com and just browse around and see if you see something you like. You can contact me for speaking engagements, or if you just want to tell me your story.
Have a lot of people reached out for you and reached out to you to share their story and what was that like for you if they have?
Yeah, a lot of people have reached out, or they come up to me after the presentations. It was like, man, that was such an inspiration. Sometimes it's heartfelt. Sometimes it's like, did you really told me that? Like for instance, these are mostly high school students saying stuff like this. It was like, yeah, it's like you broke your neck, right? I'm like, yeah, and they say, yeah, I know what you're going through. I broke my ankle once. I'm like, not the same, bro,
No.
but I get what you're trying to say. Yeah, it's
So
not the same,
so
but
trying to relate to you in their limited
yeah.
capacity.
I get it. I don't try to. One thing I did have to learn is that not to diminish someone else's triumphs because I've been through something so traumatic.
Hmm.
So it's like, hey, I broke my ankle. I'm like, that's it. You know, what I had to do. I was in ICU for 4 days.
Yeah.
But I'm trying to diminish other people's triumphs because I've been through something so traumatic. So I just take it as like, oh, how was that experience for you? But then I've had really eye-opening experience. Like I got an email, a lady from Canada that was going through like cancer. She saw the AT&T commercial. She wrote me this email and I researched your story and you made me want to never give up. I'm gonna continuously fight. I was close to the end, but after reading your story, Fletcher, you made me want to continuously fight and give up. And last time I checked, she was doing well. I haven't heard from her in a couple of years, but last time I checked, she was doing well. So just having that type of impact, just knowing that me just being me, because I never wanted to be inspirational. I never wanted to be, a beacon of light. I just didn't like to be told no. I just thought I was being normal flex. But within the path of the journey of being me, I became an inspiration. And I'm just so happy that something so simple as being myself can help so many people change lives.
Well, the fact that you think it's simple is a testament to who you are, because
Okay.
you know the idea that I just can't get over the fact that when you were a kid, they were saying, "What is wrong with you?" and
What is wrong with you, son?
and how that played out. You were preparing for this. That's what was wrong with you.
Mhm.
Just
That's what they, yeah.
you know,
Big G was prepared to be seventh grader.
yeah, absolutely. Well, Fletcher,
Mm-hmm.
is there any last statement, word, message you want to offer before I close this out?
I got one.
Okay.
The question is, I would ask everybody out there in podcast land, how big would you dream if you knew you couldn't fail? If you knew failure was impossible, how big would you dream? What would you dream for? If a genie came in, so you get three wishes, whatever you want. And you want to be a doctor, whatever. You want to be an athlete, you want a million, whatever, whatever. And whatever your answer is, start doing that today.
That's a great way
Like,
to
stop being afraid to fail. Everything you've wanted in life is on the other side of fear. Everything you wanted in life is on the other side of I don't feel like it.
ah,
So once you get past of I don't feel like it, and once you get past of being afraid, your greatest success is right up around the corner.
and success is as you define it, and you've defined it in a way that is
Mm-hmm.
spectacular and amazing
Mm-hmm.
to learn about. And I hope that people continue to reach out to you as much as you can handle it, because I think it is amazing when you have someone tell you what you mean to them. I think that's such a
Mm-hmm.
gift for you, and you deserve that. What you're doing
Thank
with,
you. I appreciate
yeah, what you're doing is, it is unselfish. It is, because you're using your story to make a difference in others' lives, and that's to be commended always.
it. Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate it. I recently just made a career out of it. People think, oh, Fletcher's been speaking. Well, I've been speaking for a while, but I also had like a real job, so to speak.
Mhm.
And and then I just started charging. Not recently, probably in the last 4 years. And other speakers talking to them, it was like I was just excited to do it. Like I was just happy to be doing it in front of audiences and somebody wants to hear my story. So I remember going to Denver one time, and I went out there. The guy said he would buy my plane ticket to come out there to Denver to speak. I was like, sure, you buy a plane ticket and food? Yeah, I'll go. Yeah, I'll be there. And just talking to the speaker, and I went before him, and he was like, man, Fletch, that was one of the best presentations I've ever heard. He was like, who's your agent? What are you talking about? What agent? I was like, you don't have no agent? He was like, how much do you charge? I don't charge nothing. He was like, you here for free? I was like, yeah, you paid my plane ticket. He was like, oh, no, Fletcher, you got an AT&T commercial. You've been speaking on college campuses. You got to start charging people. And I'm like, you think people going to pay for real? And I was like, what would you think the people would pay? He was like, at least 5,000. I was like, dollars? Like, are you for real? I'm out here for plane tickets and McDonald's sandwiches, you know. So I was like, is that people really pay? He was like, man, look. He was nice enough. He was like, look how much I've gotten paid for the past 10 speeches. And I was like, they pay you this in real American dollars. Like, this is crazy. So here you just to speak for 1 hour. I was like, oh, yeah, I ain't doing something right, you know.
Well, you're doing it right now,
Yeah,
Fletch.
I'm trying to. Yeah, I'm trying to keep it afloat. You know, COVID was definitely a hard
Oh yeah.
obstacle, so to speak. But trying to steady, keep it going.
Well, Fletcher, you have had more life experience in your journey than many adults have had in their entire lifetime, which has also included significant trauma. You remind us of some things that are it's so thought provoking, and it's also it leaves people speechless, because what do you say in response to this kind of comeback like this is just
Mhm.
incredible. I feel like I'm using the same words, but it's very heartfelt. um and like the main thing you remind us of is how unpredictable life is, and how you
Yeah.
have to pivot, right? It's all about, you have to practice your pivot, because when you need it, like this, you really have to use it, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm telling you, I was whatever September 10th, 2009 was, whatever, maybe a Wednesday, Thursday, whatever day it was. I had my whole week planned out. I was like, hey, I'm gonna go to class on Thursday, Friday. I'm gonna kick it on Saturday. Go out to the movies on Sunday. We get so caught up planning our entire lives out that we forget to. And then when something happens, all that stuff is canceled.
Yeah.
Like boom, I was in the hospital that night. No more movies on Sunday. No more practice. No more school. No more none of that. It's a whole different journey. Life can change in a blink of an eye. That's why I try to be so uh, present in the moment. Like I try to live in the present and just enjoy what's in front of me because it can be gone in a second.
Look, brother, I appreciate you. Thank you so much for making time. I don't have $5,000 to pay you, but
No.
I I appreciate sharing your story
Mhm.
and the idea that where I want to say that you're an inspiration, but I also don't want to minimize that. So what I'll say is that I have so much respect for what you've done, and just once again, thank you so much for coming on the show.
Thank you for having me. Thank you for having me. And I appreciate you. And like I said, I do stuff like this for free because I just genuinely enjoy doing it and reaching out to people and meeting new people. And hopefully someone's out there that hears my story and help them get over their obstacle.
Absolutely. Well, be well, and I'll be in touch.
All right. Have a good
All
one.
right. Thanks again. Bye.